Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm sure you didn't expect to see riverboats on the agenda today, especially at an information security conference. But here we are, because sometimes the things we overlook, the almost invisible infrastructure, the background characters in our cities, like city buses or reservoirs, we don't think much about. They're like server lights that just sort of fade into the background until they stop working. And that's why I wanted to bring to you today. Because transportation is a huge attack surface that's targeted by multiple people that want to do harm to the US. It's an ideal one because it's not always protected. And I think river is very much unprotected. River is key because to show you the stakes, almost everything you touch daily has been touched by a barge somewhere and somehow, which seems kind of astonishing, right? But petroleum, gravel, agriculture, they're all carried by barge and cheaply. Did you know DEF CON has had a maritime village since 2020? But we're in like sort of a mecca here in Louisville. We don't talk maritime, but we have the river right by us. We have ports right by us. We have a free trade zone. So I want to bring this to you guys as sort of a call to arms and also describe some of the things I've found in this area. The security landscape for river traffic is pretty interesting. I want to show you guys why we should care about it, what we can do about it, and how, as information security professionals, we can be prepared. All right, so who am I? My name is Erich Jackson. I have a few certifications. GXPM was difficult. I own my own company. It's Halbert Security. I've been an information security practitioner for 10 years, but I've been a pen tester for 8. My experience has been in web pen testing, networks, applications, and facilities on occasions. My previous life is in development and project management. I've been a speaker all over. I just came back from Norfolk for their ISSA. I've spoken at the DRI trucking conference, which was specifically to talk about cargo theft to a bunch of lawyers. I scared them to death. It was great. U of L, Codepalooza Nerd Night at Gravely Brewery, which if you haven't been to, you really should. It's a great night. All right, let's talk about what the state of security is on maritime in general. So transportation is a constant target. Volt Typhoon, which is an actor in Asia that will work against us, is constantly trying to find ways to get small incremental admin control of things, and transportation is very much part of that. The Hill this year just reported that cargo theft is on the rise. And again, I was brought into a conference to talk about that. Truck drivers and trailers are being targeted for theft, where people use web APIs and applications to fake documentation to steal trailers full of medical goods. Barges and ocean-going will soon be on that and their target as well. Do you guys remember this? The Ever Given. This was owned by the Evergreen Corporation when it blocked the Suez Canal in 2021. It wasn't cyber, but it did cause great impact. They started talking about cybersecurity right afterwards. This was just last year. The Maersk chartered Dali crashed in the Francis Scott Key Bridge in 2024, also unintentional impact. But both of those caused great impact to all transportation companies because you can't go through the bridge, you can't go through the river. And everyone started talking about cybersecurity right away. Who here is from 1997? Do I have anyone from 1997? All right, I got one. Do you guys remember this? The Belle of Louisville. Belle of Louisville was allegedly sabotaged by a person who wanted to sink it and then bring it back up for salvage. He was passionate about riverboats. It wasn't me, I swear. Everyone talks about the cyber attack of, which one was it? It was NotPetya, the ransomware, and it really affected Maersk. 300 million, 2 weeks, and that's what we know from the headlines. I think all of us could agree if we were a transportation company and we were hit by ransomware, it would affect us quite a bit. Now, bringing this forward, I wanted to tell you guys, there are professionals out there doing things on oceanside and riverside to protect us. If you go downtown, you'll see a MARSEC level, and that will gauge from 1 to 3 the current security threat. And that's also part of the MTSA, the Maritime Transportation Security Act. It shows when escorts are required and how much access you can have to a vessel. ISPS code, that's this amendment to safety of life at sea, also works with cybersecurity risk, as well as the International Maritime Organization. IACS works with control systems, engineering and boating, and boat engines being a big part of that. The point is Maritime is heavily controlled, it's heavily monitored, it has professional staff, both river and ocean side, but mostly physical and mostly cybersecurity risks. We don't have a lot of people talking about assessing boats, not that there isn't any, but there's not a lot done. Hacking attacks are largely unknown, especially on the river, and I think it's just a matter of time before we see them because a reasonable criminal organization can pull that off right now. Now, maritime is a really big field, and I can't bring all maritime to you today, but I did want to focus on 3 tiers. The vessels themselves, which I think will be probably the most interesting part for everyone, and that's going to be mostly river-based because I put all the work I did on barge and towboat. And everything I did here, this is not just Erich gives a book report. I actually did get involved and do the testing and pull off radio and networks and so forth, so we could talk all about that. Ports. Ports are less of a concern for riverboats than they are for cargo like ocean containers because we're talking about bulk. It's hard to steal tons of gravel. It's easier to steal a trailer or a container. We will talk some about it. And we also need to talk about facility and companies that work on the river. That's anyone in the business of river traffic, even AIS monitoring, which we'll talk about. What's the bottom line up front? It's kind of the same game we've been playing, just a different board, just different goals. And you'll see that as we go through it. All right, let's talk about vessels. So this is a 1984 typical towboat, not tugboat. A lot of people say that, oh, look at the tugboats on the river. That's different. You'll lose people that right away. Towboat, you can know is a towboat just from that elbow in the front, the toe knee. That's what pushes the barge. I know tow sounds like you pull, but you're actually pushing. Towboat. This is a very typical one that you would see. Modern criminals with standard SDR and other type of attack tools can attack several areas. AIS and radio, which we will talk about in detail. Navigation and controls, which can be affected by the network and also by some remote control. Propulsion, electric, and engineering, and also supplemental systems, things like crew Wi-Fi and so forth. Very much like breaking into a corporation, a hacker will want to traverse and pivot through different parts of the system. And there has been known cases where they have pivoted through and completely compromised ships. One of the key things to remind yourself as we go through this is network segmentation and default unsecured credentials that will cause quick compromise. That's not just in hospitals where we see loose credentials everywhere, it's on vessels as well. All right, networking. I know people love talking about networking. We will make it as painless as possible. Networking is key as part of a pen tester to know more how to test it. I want to bring to you how it's tested or how it's set up on vessels. They are a little bit different. They use something called NMEA, which is National Marines Electronic Association. There's a few different protocols. What you need to do is somehow connect sensors like rudder, speed, depth, with navigation controls, as well as multifunctional displays that are used for cameras, as well as speed or other things. How do you connect them? You can't use Ethernet. You'll have to use something called NMEA. There's different protocols. NMEA 0183 is sort of the older one, think sort of like the 1980s. It's human readable. It transmits in ASCII, whereas 2000, which is what you'll see most of, is CAN-based, Control Area Network. Physically very similar to what would be in a car, but sends different transmissions. It's faster. And NMEA 1net, which we're seeing more on ocean-going vessels, they're same messages as the 2000, but they use IPv6-based Ethernet. Now, if you see that, the way I saw it, you're like, well, what were the others if they weren't Ethernet? And unlike switches or routers, where we have to get in between, I know not everyone is network experienced fully with network. If I have to eavesdrop on a network, I have to get between the client and the server, be a sort of a machine in the middle, middler in the middle. Switches just make that where we have to do that. With hubs, we can listen to everything, because if I get on a hub, I hear all traffic. 0183 and 2000 networks or hubs, they broadcast to everybody. So as soon as I get on the network, I can listen to everything, unless they're one net, which chances are they probably aren't. I have a few examples here. On the left, we're not going to go through that whole schematic. There's just a few things I wanted to point out and walk over to show you. The 0183 network is right here between the GPS and the radio. A few connections. It's actually connected by something you remember in the 1980s, this serial connector, which sort of have to dust off the neurons to see that one again. It will transmit in ASCII, and those sentences will make sense to people as it goes through, but you don't have to decode it. you could kind of see what the data that's behind it. And NMEA 2000 network up here is sort of assemble yourself network right there on the top. If you remember Capsula or Legos from the 80s, they connect together and people don't even know they're really putting together a network. They have to put end caps in it to keep the transmissions going in sort of a ring. They transmit in hex, so not usable readable. So how do you make it where it's usable, user readable? Use something called Signal K, mostly intended for recreational boaters. Is intended to work in tandem with existing protocols like 2000.01a3. When you connect your gateway to a networked device on NMEA, it will convert everything to JSON, which is much easier to develop on. It also provides API and WebSocket options. Now, mostly found recreational, but I've talked to several maritime companies, and this is where it gets a little bit weird. I've had one maritime company say no ocean-going vessel and no riverboat is going to use Signal K. I heard another one that worked in cybersecurity saying you'll see Signal K on all the commercial boats. I'm thinking there's some average in between there. So I think Signal K is important. The other one that they might use is something called A100, which is similar and will produce similar results. I hope I have some web testers in here. So if I do, take a look at this. So we have, I brought this straight from the specification of signalk.org. We have just a few, I didn't take all of them. Some example APIs on the left there, which is getting some depth. You can see it's just a RESTful style request, as well as WebSocket requests. We can get depth that way and subscribe and get push notifications. We can also send notifications on this hub, such as man overboard, which I think might catch somebody's attention. Do I have any web testers here? I hope so. Would you want to test this? Because I would. My experience with APIs like this is they're extremely flat, and there's going to be something in there that I probably shouldn't be able to do, but probably can. If you have a flat API and there's something like send email, I can send an email on behalf of the website, right? So now we are looking at vessels where I can have unintentional web requests that may not be tested. There's different attack vectors on NMEA. There's potential for intercept and modification. Data may be integrated into older systems. That may include things like Windows 7, which are on some ships, both riverside and oceanside. Modification could be where I can drop readings, or I can change depth, or I can make alarms go off, or even have direct impact to navigation controls, because sometimes those are tied in. Depends on how they've done it on the vessel. Every vessel is different. It's going to be like every company, but they may have more automation. And if they haven't fully tested, well, we've seen what happens when there's automation that's not fully tested. Signal K provides a full new web interface or surface for us to test. So web testing and fuzzing is paramount, especially APIs. And tampering messages on the network is something that probably needs to be tested on all vessels. This device here is from Finland. It's a HatLabs device. It will let you connect onto an NME network and establish an access point and start sending out messages. It's intended for diagnostics, but I think people like me immediately see and they're like, I want to cause and do some testing on the network. I think it's always surprising too to find out the vessels have networks like that and a web surface. Like that's one thing that I thought that I really wanted to bring to you today. Now, AIS, automated or automatic identification system. Most people, when they start working with software-defined radio, they start looking at ADSB. ADSB is aviation traffic. So if you put on your HackRF or your RTL SDR dongle onto your computer, one of the very first things you like to do after listening to NOAA weather is to listen to aviation traffic. It will broadcast location, altitude, temperature, all sorts of stuff. It's like having your own ATC on your PC. AIS is similar stuff, but even more. Just think aviation, but on the water. There's different telemetry. It includes things like longitude, altitude, what it's doing on the water. And it transmits on two known marine frequencies, 87B and 88B, also known as AIS 1 and 2. There's different types of transceivers. Commercial vessels will broadcast high power every 2 to 3 seconds. Think of that as like a radar sweep. The vessels on our river will transmit on Class A. If you're a recreational boater, you might decide you want to broadcast yourself, either using a Class B or B+. Reason being, you might be in a busy harbor. Might be lots of container ships, and you might want to be seen. Class A is required for all sorts of ships based on tonnage. I'm not going to go through all the different types of reasons you might have Class A. I will say that most riverboats will have them. So I told you I did all the dirty work. That includes going and getting the AIS. So my girlfriend's a realtor, and she showed a house on the river. And me being the great boyfriend I am, I said, I'll bring my SDR, my computer, and all my equipment. So I listened in to all that stuff, and I brought it back. And those that know me know I have no sense of direction, so I couldn't tell you where I was. But I did get the hex back, and I started doing the analysis on it. So first, you take the hex and convert it to binary. If you go to the Coast Guard's website, there is a full specification of how you decode it. The first 4 characters being the message initial ID, the second being how many times it's been repeated, the third being the MMSI number, which is the Maritime Mobile Service Identity. That's the vessel number. It goes on and on and on. And it has different things that we pull from this message. One thing is that's the vessel number, MMSI. The navigational status, which I know you can't read, but I will read for you. It is either pushing or pulling a barge, so that's accurate. Longitude and latitude, so it comes through and it makes it where my sense of direction doesn't matter. This is where we were, really close to captain's quarters, which I probably should have known. I have lived here my entire life. So now if you go to marine traffic, you don't have to be a wackadoo like me and listen to SDR. You can go to marinetraffic.com and see this right now. So if you want to see river traffic regularly, it's a paid service, but you can do a lot with free stuff. So it's really the best way to see stuff in Louisville. This is from July 31st, around 12:30, and you see a riverboat right in progress. My cousin's here. We actually found his son-in-law's towboat off, was it Paducah? I think it was Paducah. Live. You can also go to other, I mean, it's not just for river, it's also coastal traffic. So here's Miami, same time, and you can see Box Endurance is a container ship. It's right down there, and it's coming inbound to Miami. Now, there is an open source version that you can get, and if you like using that, and you want to just have constant traffic, something called AIS Catcher. Now, why this is good is it doesn't only go by web. You can install it locally and use your SDR and get traffic that way. That's what I was doing when I was at the down helping Annie at her realty thing. Now, I will tell you, AIS Catcher does not have huge coverage, so you don't see much here in Louisville. I thought you also might want to see worldwide traffic. This is all ocean going and river traffic that's known on July 31st, 12:30. A lot of inbound stuff or inland stuff, both in South America, look between Brazil and Chile. And you can see all the stuff that's in the United States. There's a ton of stuff out there. There is not many cybersecurity people in this field. That's one reason I want to bring this to us, because I think we need to have more and more discussion about it. It's an area that, I think just needs more coverage by us. So now that we know a little bit about AIS, how can it be used for evil, and what other things can be done with it? Now, military, it's not evil, but they will not broadcast AIS, which makes sense. We don't want to know where nuclear submarines are. That's part of the nuclear triad, and probably not good to broadcast that. But you can go to marine traffic and see where they were last spotted when they last announced their location. A few of them, if you look at just the ones I can see here, because I need my glasses, off on Australia, the Australian warship, that was from 17 days ago. The other ones a little bit north, 64 and 178 days ago, so you're not going to get anything live. Illegal activities also will spoof AIS instead of turning it off to make it where they can do embargo busting, get past a sanction. The Shania Queen, if you want to read a full detail on this, it did a crazy turn into Karachi, out of Pakistan, to get past an embargo, and it was very improbable. Also, we know network tampering is possible with NMEA, right? So if we can do that and we can interfere with AIS, which we absolutely can if we get on the network, we can make the boat seem like it's somewhere it isn't. Which, by the way, that's the plot of Tomorrow Never Dies. It's crazy, right? There is also different attacks that can happen. We have a adversary, not sure if I can mention it, we just have a cold war with them. They occasionally will do GPS attacks, and they did this several times, which I actually got to monitor live on this year. I can't remember if this was my picture or I got off Reddit, but I did see the actual thing happen in both cases. The one on the left is from Israeli conflicts. That wasn't Russia. Whoops. And then Russia also jammed several traffic on the Finnish-Russian border. The way this works is they jam one part of the satellite. You need 3 satellites to get a triangulation. Now there's math that's involved, and what will happen is your AIS or your GPS receiver will try to estimate where you were the last time it lost connection. And what happens, the practical upshot of it is, it will look like a big circle. So those boats are obviously not all in a circle like that, and they're definitely not inland like that as well. But what results is you have spoofed GNSS, which is Global Navigation Systems, GPS being one of them, also affecting AIS. AIS is very well liked on vessels because it lets you plot ships very easily on a map. Now we have 2 untrusted systems, and we have to rely on radar, dispatch, or visual, and that's not a great situation to be in. My reason in bringing this forward is, do riverboats know what this looks like? And I'm banking that they don't, based on what I understand a lot of ocean-going vessels do because they're attacked pretty regularly, but not riverboats. So I think it's something for us to bring forward. There's a bunch of different other vessel networks that are involved. It's not just NMEA. Why would you need another network? Well, not just for navigation and controls, which you can add into it, but also communications. River is often within cell reach, but not always, so you might need satellite communication for voice over IP or business emails. You may need employee records, shipping details, time clock. A lot of times, unions on the ocean-going side are demanding more and more Wi-Fi access that's unrestricted for the crew, and we might see this more and more on the river. And you might see remote access, where a riverboat needs to be accessed and updated, which makes sense, especially on the ocean, because you can't send a tech very easily to update systems. Now, the big question is, are these all in the same flat network? Now, I've talked to about 4 or 5 maritime companies, and this is the big thing that gets vessels in trouble. They put everything on the same flat network. And that means that one single compromise at either at the crew Wi-Fi access point or somewhere else can lead to total compromise, including industrial control, which again, engine and what is it, the ballast, the thing to sink the ship. Remote access is going to be more and more of a thing. This is available for merchant marine, both riverboat and ocean going, as well as recreational. Telematic and remote is only to increase because of satellite coverage and cloud coverage. There's multiple good reasons why you want remote access. We want remote access just for our company, right? Because we want to update specialized systems and we want to be able to monitor where things are. And this gives us that. So all remote access should be tested at minimum and known. Do they use default passwords? Which some do. Has there been misconfiguration? Has there been out-of-date software? And this is a real thing. I don't think you guys can see this at all, so I'll kind of read it to you. On the left is a Shodan example. Now Shodan, for those that haven't used it, very similar to Google. What you're doing is you're not looking for web page content, you're looking at the web headers. And why is that important? You can look for if this is a camera. And if you know that there's a camera that is insecure, you can look for that camera type. Find a bunch of insecure cameras online. This example, and I did try this to see if this is still happening, it isn't any longer, is with MRSAT. It's a very popular satellite communication used ocean going. You can find live IPs that you can actually remote into, and I will give you a DEF CON link here at the end of this where someone did exactly that, went into systems live at DEF CON, typed in admin, and was in ocean going vessels. I also found this. This is from, I think, April this year, from the Trawler Forum. This is for recreational boaters that use trawlers. And they are talking, I know you can't read it, the 2 people going back and forth about how they are trying to connect TeamViewer successfully and unsuccessfully to Windows 7 and 8 PCs on their recreational trawler with TeamViewer. This is why I think we need more cybersecurity people involved in this area, because this is what we're talking about. Good technology, good ideas. I just don't think they're thinking about it from an attack standpoint. Rogue devices, like rogue access points, this is no longer just an office problem. Sorry, I'm just going to have to get a little tea here. Now, people might add a rogue access point to their office because maybe their technical group is not providing what they need, so they go off to Best Buy and they provide their own access point. This has happened on the vessel as well. So it may be so they can play games or get unrestricted content. I have an example right here from the Navy Times where senior enlisted leaders on a vessel put in their own access point and potentially compromise a full military vessel. If they're not segmented, then you can have a full vessel compromise just by that added in. And it may serve as just an entry point, either remotely or nearby. We're going to see more of this too, because rogue access points are still a vector in 2025. A rogue access point being something that looks like an access point you should connect to, but you really probably should not. So like you go to Starbucks, you see there's Starbucks Wi-Fi, you connect to it and you're like, oh, this is really fast, not knowing you're actually on a hacker's router. Modern day rogue access points do usually one of two things. They're usually trying to phish or they're trying to scan. Scanning, come on my router, my evil router, I'll look on your PCs and see if there's shares or vulnerabilities, I'll get on it. Most often it's phish because it's hard to get on Wi-Fi routers these days. They use pretty good passwords. So if I show a Wi-Fi connection that is down, all I need to do is type in my Wi-Fi connection password again. They've just given me the password for the Wi-Fi connection. Now my view as a pen tester is you aren't limited just to Wi-Fi credentials. You can do all sorts of attacks and request all sorts of credentials. I'll show you one in a second. There's multiple attack tools. The Pineapple Pager just came out on DEF CON. That's coming out later officially this year. Is a battery-powered rogue access point you can clip to your belt. Now, everyone has heard me talk about the Carputer. The Pineapple costs $300. Carputer costs $30, and it will do everything the Pineapple will do. It just doesn't clip to your belt. It doesn't look as good. And you can represent any system that might be down. So how would this work on a vessel network? You could put down either de-auth a setup access point or just say an access point is up, have someone connect, and ask for corporate credentials. And how would that work? Let me give you an office one. So here I've set up on my Carputer a Wi-Fi called Halberd Cafe. I don't want anyone to connect to it. So I could have done an evil twin and copied like the U of L one. Now I'll select a Zscaler captive portal, which I've written, and start captive portal. And you might say, Erich, Zscaler has nothing to do with Wi-Fi. Right, I know that, but we also have to enter in a lot of things with Zscaler often, and a lot of people in the executive level are not very happy entering credentials. So if I put a Wi-Fi access point, even in Starbucks, and I show a Zscaler access for that, do you think your executive team will enter in their passwords? I'm thinking they would. I think I've got a good chance of that. And that's my point with vessels, is that they probably will enter in credentials they shouldn't either, just to get past it. So there's multiple attacks that we can do on vessels. There's captive portal, network attacks. Again, it's a hub, just like a regular hub network, just on water. The key items for us to keep in mind as we are called forward on this, because I think we will be asked more and more, is we just have to understand and test the network vessels, test the vessel network thoroughly. We have to have them maintain a strong network defense. That is, they have to put the planning together. Monitor for new and unknown devices. I realize that's hard, but it's something that we will be asked to do. Segmenting networks and limiting access to least privilege principles. And have a procedure for handling personal devices, not just USB, but military also will now let you inject a RFID device into your skin because it's removable media or writable media as well. So have a policy for that. And an incident plan at ready and an on-call resource. So those are vessels. Let's talk about ports. Ports are a lower attack surface. Now again, we're dealing with cargo that's primarily bulk. So that's gravel, that's petroleum, that's fertilizer, or minerals, hard to steal. That limits our involvement a little bit, but not entirely. Our focus should be on surveillance, basic locks, and electronic sabotage. There is some barge theft and sabotage already. I have an example here where Hernando County man was accused of stealing a barge and eating potato chips to travel down the river. Anyone guess what state that's from? It's Florida, of course. Yeah. So camera. Cameras. Cameras are typically forensic, meaning they are not catching someone in an act. They're used to prosecute that individual later on or find out what happened. They're usually not active. My involvement here in Louisville when I have looked at different facilities is it's a wireless camera that hasn't been on for a long time. So some basic camera checks that we have to recommend to river and maritime groups is, do you have full coverage of your port? Is it a secure installation? If you have listened to any of the physical DEF CON talks, they will talk about how important professional installation is and why you shouldn't necessarily do a DIY installation. Vulnerabilities. There are cameras that have easy vulnerabilities. One I tested that had a login for it on 8080, but if I went to port 8081, I could just bypass the login. So check your camera brand. You can check in NIST or just Google it. Shodan is a good resource for this. And DEOF. DEOF is still a thing. Still will probably be a thing a little bit in WPA3. Test your wireless camera's resistance and response to DEOF frames. What I mean by that is, can it be kicked off the network easy? Locks. The key is to find a lock that's not trivial to bypass. So search your padlock that you use on your port along with bypass or pick. Now I have an example that I got for ports right here. As a maritime lock with protections and so forth. The first time I raked it, it took me 30 seconds. I am bringing this to the Lockpick Village for anyone that wants to try it. It's a very easy lock to bypass. If you have a lock that's 10 to 15 years old, it might be a good time to buy a new one. Lock picking lawyer is a great resource in this case. And exposed electronics. One thing that I talk to teams and groups about in companies is the USB drop test and why that's important. And most people know why USBs can get you in a lot of trouble. They can carry malware. But if you're familiar with USB kill devices, which are advertised as a prank device or a pen testing device, which it is neither, it is extremely modern danger that what it will do is when you plug it in, it will take all the voltage out of a PC and push it right back into the motherboard or the circuit board and destroy it instantly. It's actually kind of terrifying. That's an example one that you can get, has all sorts of additional adapters to make sure that you can destroy whatever you're looking at. It costs around $60 to $80. And it has been used for intentional sabotage, especially by insider threats. So something to keep in mind, especially in our ports, if our cameras or our other devices are exposed, we want to make sure that they aren't. That counts for vessels too, because how do you update maps on a vessel? By USB. Corporations. All rivertime corporations are in this game if they don't know they are. So if you have a corporation that is just tracking AIS data or is scheduling cargo to go on barges, they welcome to the game, guys, because you are going to be tested by other adversaries right now. Modern cargo theft uses lots of lots of false documentation. So if we take trailer trucks as an analog, after I talked to the lawyers, they were all desperate for me to give them ways that it was stolen because that was their big thing. Someone will show up, with a full tractor, full documentation, and say, this is the trailer I need to pick up, go away with medical supplies, and then the rail tractor shows up. I think we're going to see this more, not just with containers, but riverbound traffic. Right now, that's mostly under the radar, but I think it's on us to make it future-proof. I have talked to some maritime companies, and they have told me that they are about 15 years behind where they should be. So that gives you an idea of what the web traffic and the vessels look like. So vulnerability testing, something that we recommend to all corporations, but we absolutely want to see external pages tested. APIs are overlooked often, very dangerous to do so. I've done a lot of damage with APIs, pretend damage. A lot of times you could just pull off a lot of data, a lot of times you can do things. And it's not because the developers don't care, they do. That's one of the reasons they get themselves in trouble, because they put so much in, because they want to prove that they are capable and they're enjoying their job, but sometimes they put too much, and that's why API must be looked at. I have looked at some of the sites online now. I did not test them, unethical to do so, but I would suggest testing is probably required based on what I'm seeing right now. Secure facilities. You guys talk about RFID, right? Current maritime policy will cover most ports and shipping areas, but corporate offices need to also be concerned about that as well because they have a lot of the data that needs to be protected. So some basic RFID security. So things you need to know: what kind of system are you running? Do you know if your badges are sequential? You don't want sequential badges, because if I get a badge, I can just go backwards to find who is the important person. If I got badge number 200, I'll guess badge 001 has all the power and create my own badge and access the computer room. I can guess as long as I need. Asset control. Where do you store your RFID details? Is it on SharePoint? Is it on a notepad or a safe somewhere protected by a wafer lock? Those are all things I've seen before. Things that you don't want, because if I get all the RFID details, I can create badges out of thin air and have full access to them. Secure installation. You want to make sure that the RFID reader does not have wires that can be tampered with. Most RFID readers, I'm going to mime this, if you look at the top or the bottom, have a coin or screw that can, or coin screw that can be opened. You open it up, remove the reader, and there's 4 wires, green and white are data, red, power, black, ground. You can attach a device that will read all the details from it. And walking along the river, there are several that use, I won't mention what they use, HID procs, that's a low frequency RFID, very easy to do that very thing too. So things to be concerned about. And badge policy. You want to protect RFID right now? Have a good badge policy. Make sure that people don't wear their badges outside of the office for multiple reasons. You don't want to be attributed to a company if you spill coffee on someone. Don't want to show your name. But also, people can pull those off thin air and read it using a long-range reader and try to access your PC. So a great test for a river company is just go to the Starbucks nearby and just watch how many people walk in with a badge on. You know you can steal it, but you can also count to see what their vulnerability is. Check for exposed hinges, latches, and locks. I have heard just recently from one of my good colleagues that hinges may be a little bit harder to hammer out these days. But vulnerability tests now will significantly decrease any later cost impact. Let's talk about USBs one last time. USBs are a very popular way to attack. All criminal actors and state actors will use this, and they often include powerful malware. It's very tempting if you see a USB that says private pictures, or it has a key on it, or it has any sort of like little icon, even a smiley face will do it. People want to do the right thing, they want to return it to the owner, or they just are curious. I, years ago, did exactly that and plugged something in. 20 years ago though, so I'm safe. The best example is Stuxnet, and I'll just mention that briefly for those that haven't heard it. Stuxnet, there was a RAN facility that an intelligence group wanted to get to. It's largely attributed to Mossad and CIA. How did they get in? They dropped a bunch of USBs outside the facility. Some poor sap picked it up, plugged it in, put malware onto their system that attacked their centrifuges. Made their centrifuges run really fast, and their gauges showed everything was normal. So there was no way to stop it until it was too late. I think based on what we've seen today, with the amount of USBs on a vessel and the network accessibility and the non-segmented parts of it, how damaging this could be to a vessel. So testing of resilience with a USB drop test, shows what policies are required and what education is needed. I know not everyone can test, but I do think that people can put good policies in place now to prevent those kind of issues happening. This applies equally to offices as well as vessels. So how do we, as information security practitioners, prepare? And there's multiple ways. I think it's good to have a jump bag because we're called often to help out people. I know I am. You just need to make sure you have a good disaster recovery heavy jump bag. I put a lot of disaster recovery USB images on my keychain, so I have them ready to go at any time. You need a basic understanding of NMEA, which you now have, and the Internet of Things for boating, as well as AIS and SDR. If you haven't used SDRs, this is a good time to do it. SDR is a great rabbit hole to go down, and it's rewarding. Locating devices. This is not always easy. A little practice is required, so finding implants, rogue access points on your network using NMAP-FU or Airmon NG to get closer to it, or if you got a dope scope in one of the previous conferences, that's a directional device that will help you find these devices. Ethernet taps and testing equipment would be a good thing to add to your kit. I do know with cruise boats, which are typically well tested, one thing that they will test is to find out where all of the Ethernet cables lead, and that will get a lot of information for them. Asset management. Be prepared to talk to maritime companies about how to hold those or secure those correctly, as well as how social engineering takes place, both by criminals and professionals. Don't forget web. Web and APIs are important, not just vessel, not just port, but company-wide. And be prepared to provide any of these companies some minor security plus training. TWIC. This is a great credential to get, because if you do not have a TWIC, you may not be able to access vessels or ports or any type of maritime company without it. It's a TSA and a U.S. Coast Guard program. It's very secure. It has an ICC, and when you get it, it'll have a pin sent to you separately. It's important to have. I have talked to several people where you may not need it, but you might as well. I mean, why not have an additional credential? It does give you pre-check abilities as well, and it's fast turnaround. When I got my TWIC, I found out about it like on a Monday night at like 9 o'clock. I made my appointment for the next day. I got my TWIC in my hands in 10 days and the pen just a few days later. Now, I did say that I did all the things and experienced all the pain for you guys, and I did with TWIC. So I went to Norfolk, and I used my TWIC for TSA pre-check. And you know, I'm going to tell you right off, it didn't work. You know what does work? Blunder. I got to the very front of the line, and I showed this like I was showing like some secret agent's credential, and they're like, well, what's your known traveler number? Which I didn't know because I didn't do any preparation. And I think the way it works is you do need to put your traveler number when you register the ticket, which I did not do, but they still let me through, so you know, give it a shot. I think it's good to have an additional credential anyway, so might as well get it. It lasts for a while and has a cold boat on it so you can show that you've done all the maritime stuff. All right, I got a few sources for you. Feel free to take a picture of this. And I can send this out to Mickey and make sure this gets to everyone. Do you want to fall in love with river traffic today? Look at this barge movie. It's not anything information security related. It's about 30 minutes long. It's independently done, and it's wonderful, and you will love everything about it. I remember what my dad used to bring me out to watch river traffic when I was 4 years old. And it was like all the imagination I had, real life. It was great, so I recommend it. If you want to know more about NMEA 2000, or really 0183, that's a great reference off Digital Yacht. There are information security videos to prepare people ocean going, not river going, on information security issues. You will see everything we talked about in this Maritime InfoSec video. It's only given to, I think, European companies, but it's well worth the watch. DEF CON. This was an amazing talk. So this fellow on live stage showed how you could take over vessels by satellite, and he did. He was able to just go onto a random IP. I forgot who flagged the what flag it was flying underneath, but he was able to get onto their system. Well worth your watch. And I watched it after I put this together, so a lot of the things I've talked about is already at the beginning of his talk, so you can go right to the end and see the hack. Marine or SDR, if you're not familiar with SDR, RTL SDR is a great resource. They have a whole marine category, and you can find everything you want about a marine radio. If you don't want to do marine radio, just do marinetraffic.com. It'll show you everything. You can do that right now. AIS Catcher being the open source one. How you want a TWIC as well? Go ahead and get one off tsa.gov. And that whole thing about finding stuff on Shodan, there's a whole bunch of that, plus other open source intelligence on vessels under this Medium article. And I'll make sure this gets to you guys. There's a picture of me doing all the things I shouldn't do on the river with my SDR and a couple of a Cantana and a couple of PCs. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have, maritime or otherwise. Anyone got any questions? That over here, that big one that looks like a bazooka that I really was taking a big risk on by bringing to the river, that is a Cantana. So it's connected. I wanted to see if there's Wi-Fi access on the barges. There are. And I wanted to see what they were. And I don't think they're segmenting them either. So the attack vector there is, I got my PC, moved the Cantana along with the barge. Cantana, for those who are not familiar, directional Wi-Fi. This one, yeah, I ordered this one though because I didn't trust my electronics at the time. This was a military grade one, whatever that means. You can throw it around and it's cheaper. That's right, that's right. All right. Any other questions at all? I'm happy to talk about anything maritime. Yes, go ahead.
Well, this isn't maritime. What is the device you said you mentioned a ghost finder to find rogue devices around anywhere that
Yes. What was the device to find a Wi-Fi device? A dope scope. It just went to $200. It was $100 off War Color Industries. I don't get anything from them, but they are great. I have sent my dope scope in because I couldn't figure out how to update it the first time, and they sent it back to me the next day. They are great, so I highly recommend it. I have one in my briefcase if you want to see it. And it doesn't just pick up Wi-Fi, it picks up Bluetooth. And their latest version shows all sorts of interesting details. I'll be happy to show that to you after this. Any other questions at all? Yes, go ahead.
On the AIS stuff, do you find that the polarization matters that much?
The polarization? I really want to give you a good answer on that. I want to tell you I did it wrong the first time. I brought my HackRF and not my RTL SDR dongle, which would have been better. I was trying to get long range, and I just cannot get long range with this device. Not HackRF, I try to do it from home. I live in Hikes Point, and it's not happening. I have heard people do it. So there are people in Michigan that live pretty far away, and they are picking up big container ships. I have not done it yet. I want to. I really do, because I want to see this traffic live.
I'm struggling with building an 8 meter with an amplifier on it. That's the reason I asked.
Oh, well, radio stuff. We'll have to talk. I like talking that stuff. Any other questions at all? No maritime? No pen testing? Going once?
Well, I will say I just signed up for my TWIC.
Oh, great! Let me know if it works for you with TSA pre-check. Yeah, it's amazing because they did not want to deal with me. They're like, just go. So that works. Yeah. Any other questions at all? Great, thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.